All right.
Very cool.
Can we change?
Who was who wanted to ask that question about intergenerational memories?
That was probably. If you're looking at things that people evolve and often bring memories from past lives, from maternal and paternal DNA, etc., is that something that can be changed through embedding and?
Yeah, so that's I would say absolutely, because I believe that there's this incredible it's a belief. There's no science to prove it yet, but I personally feel that it's more useful. I've always felt since I learned NLP, it's more useful to assume we don't know what can be changed and assume that everything can be changed, because a framework coming from that gives us the best chance to change. And if we keep following the success formula, which have you guys got the success formula up here anywhere? The know your outcome, take action, learn from feedback. That's coming today. Oh, you're going to get that. And for anyone who's already done NLP, when NLP modelled really successful people, they found they pretty much followed a 4-step process. You simplify it down to 4 steps, and you could simplify it down to 3 if you wanted, but you lose a bit of power. So 1, know your outcome, and the outcome has to be well formed. Number 2, you've got to take action. You've got to take congruent action on your outcome, because there's a lot of people who know what they want and they never take action. They're the people we call someday I'lls. Someday I'll do this. I really got these great dreams. Never take action. And then after you take action, you've got to sensory acuity. This is what you did yesterday. Calibration. Open the doors of perception. Watch what's happening in your as you take action. Is this moving you closer or further away from your outcome? And then you've got to have behavioural flexibility. Something else that we talked about. A bit of requisite variety. Requisite variety that's going to be coming up. And that is that you've got to have the flexibility to change and adjust, because there are other people like balls in the china shop, you know, that they take an action. It actually comes back from, I think, our kindergarten. You know, we have this little saying where you run around, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. No, if at first you don't succeed, try anything else. Because what you just did didn't work. Don't do it again. That's that definition of insanity, right? Or insanity. Doing the same behaviour and expecting to get a different result. I mean, hello. So NLP is a 4-step process, and I believe it's better to operate from the assumption that everything can be changed, and then use your sensory acuity to notice and then keep changing and adjusting until you find a way, because otherwise you've given up before you've even tried. So if we talk about epigenetics, if we talk about the phosphorylation of DNA and what's been carried through, you talk about, for example, we go back to the first, all these things are linked, right? So we go back to the first question and go, where does your microbiome come from? So we talk about things coming down the matriarchal line, for example. One of the things that comes down the matriarchal line is your microbiome. The baby's gut brain, all of that beautiful bacteria that's living in there, the flora, this whole ecology that allows that person to have either great immune response or, no, hope you'll excuse the expression, but it's apt, or crap immune response, right, literally. So it's all up to what goes into that baby's gut. Now, they used to think that the baby's microbiome, the gut, was populated during the birth process. As the baby goes through the birth canal, all the meconium, etc., and then the breastfeeding, and that's where the microbiome gets going. But it turns out that more recently, like in the last 6 months, they've discovered that the gut brain actually sending through the umbilical cord into the uterus, into the placenta, into the baby's gut, the bacteria, before the baby's even born.
Could you say that again?
So the bacteria that's in the mother's gut, the enteric nervous system is channeling it and getting it through the umbilical cord and into the placenta and into the baby's gut. So the microbes are being sent, all the good ones.
The good ones.
The good ones. Well, as best that gut brain, and that's where it comes to. If your gut brain, your own microbiome's all screwed up.
Because that's my related question, is what about the mother's
No, if hers is all
brains
screwed up.
and her gut brain,
That's right.
how does that affect the baby?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. Exactly. And I've got a friend who's written a number of books. She's one of the leaders in the world of this field of pre-birth, and the book Better Babies, and I can't remember all the titles. She's got so many. I remember we met her on a whole island. We were doing a sea kayak for a week out to a deserted island, and we were sitting around a fire, and Fiona and I, strangely enough, had won this prize for the best tent site. I'm
Most tiny?
well, it was the most creative, but you see, I'm a real...
Always a high achiever.
I'm an isolationist. And so we're in this, it's only a small group, there's like 12 people, but we're on our own, and everyone puts their tents close together. I go, let's put our tent way over there. All right, now, I don't really want to see other people. So I went and got palm fronds and built all this stuff so that we had our own little spot and we didn't have to see other people. Well, they thought it looked really decorative, so we won the prize for it. And I'm not into competitions, right? We got the prize. So we're sitting there with our prize, which is a big thing of Fijian rum, which we had made into a coconut at the time, and oh my god, such a headache next day. So I'm half tanked sitting on the beach, and we're around a fire, and there's this lady who we've been paddling with her and her son. She's in her kayak, we're in our kayak. There's only like 5 or 6 kayaks in this whole trip for a couple of days now, but I just want to be out there by myself. I'm not really talking much. So now we're talking. So what do you do, Jan? She goes, I'm an author. So that's interesting. I'm an author too. I do quite a lot of writing. So what have you written? And she starts saying some of the books, and Fiona looks at her and goes, "You're that Jan." Because Fiona, my beloved, who was at the back of the room when I first arrived, is a midwife, and she just finished her naturopath degree. And one of the assignments she had to do for one of the subjects was to study Jan's books and then write. So we were sitting there going, that's just incredible. That Jan.
Only you would win a prize.
Yeah,
to be next to Jan.
Next to Jan, and we've formed this very strong relationship and friendship since. She with one of the interviews on mBraining.com. So I assume you've all gone to our website mBraining.com. You'll notice there's all these interviews with remarkable brains, and one of them is with Jan Roberts, and talking about this. Jan Roberts. Yeah. So if you're into this, you'll know, and everyone around the world will know Jan, because this is her area of expertise. And one of the things that she's so strong on is, and this is even before she came across mBraining, or I sent her the book mBraining, is you've got to get the number 1 right, because of that number 2 aspect, because the whole of the microbiome is getting populated by the mother's gut. But it's not just the mother, because it's also impacted in the father, and what's going on in the father affects the sperm. It's just the whole thing is interconnected, and it goes back. A lot of the epigenetic effects skip a generation, so it's from grandparents skips through. And if your grandparents were in a stressful environment, it will actually influence the protein expression of your DNA, the phosphorylation, down through the 2 generations, and probably more. The Bible probably had it right. The sins of the parents are visited unto the 2nd and 3rd generations. So we've seen these patterns. People in spiritual traditions have got metaphors and expressions for it. And various different aspects do carry through. So that's just one, I can say, epigenetic effects. There's all sorts of stuff that's carrying, in the information field of the universe.
But Grant, I think part of that question, what I was interested in about
How
that
would you
question was, and you're aware of Bruce Lipton's work and the biology of belief and how we can change the genetic blueprint.
So that was where I was getting to.
Okay, because
Yeah.
we're
So
wondering
that's
if you're in alignment
absolutely.
with that.
I can tell you a heap of different processes that will be impacted by all of this stuff. So, number 1, you better, if you've had a history, a family history that's produced something in your own life that's producing a protein expression, an information expression in your life, you need to start working on the base level. So if you've got a client who comes in, and so for, say someone like myself, whose parents and grandparents were in the First and Second World Wars, and horrible things in Germany and Northern Europe, and like Holocaust type stuff, then it's going to be, even though you've been born in Australia and had a fantastic life, you're carrying all sorts of interesting patterns. So the first thing you better do is start working at the gut level, and starting aligning at the gut level. The first thing you better do is start getting your gut flora right. Then you better start looking at the patterns and processes of autonomic nervous system, because stressors are going to influence the autonomic nervous system and lead to you to have a propensity for either overreactivity or underreactivity, depending on how you're. So that then influences, of course, endocrine, all sorts of other things. So you need to start learning how to come back to new patterns, because these neural networks can change. So you were born into an informational field of epigenetics and, you know, unconscious calibration and rapport of responding to your parents and your grandparents and to the little messages that go all through the family. You know, you all know that story about cutting the teaching story of cutting the roast in half.
Oh, yes, it's a fantastic.
I'll share it because it's a great learning story for many, many aspects of you know, being able to let go of old patterns and not even noticing. So it's Sunday, it's tomorrow, right? And it's Sunday lunch, and this young lady has her mother over, and she's about to prepare the roast. She's about to cut it in half. She says, "Mum, why do I cut the roast in half again? I don't know. I mean, that's what you taught me. I've been doing it ever since I got married. But why do I cut it in half? I don't understand." And the mother goes, "I don't know, darling. That's what my mother taught me. Your grandmother. It's just what I've always done. So I taught you." And she's, "Why don't you ring up grandmother and ask her?" "Good idea." Jump on the phone. "Grandma, why do I cut the roast in half?" "Oh, darling, that's easy. My great-great-grandmother, back in the day, in those days they had really tiny ovens, and you couldn't fit a full-size roast unless you cut it in half. So she taught her mother, who taught her mother, who taught my mother, who taught me. I taught your mother, and obviously she's taught you." She said, "Well, Grandma, do I need to?" She says, "No, darling, I haven't done it for years." "Oh, no, it dries out the roast. No, don't cut it in half." In the meantime, you know, Grandma's changed, but mother and daughter are still going on doing the pattern. So there's the little unconscious messages that, you know, filter through families, and you don't even know that you're getting a message, and a piece of information, a self-replicating idea, a meme. Right? Meme is a fancy word for self-replicating idea that's transferring down from brain to brain through the family, outside of conscious awareness, in the metaphors and myths of who you are, of a sense of identity, and it impacts you at a core level. So another lovely teaching story experience that is really important and relates to how people respond. And when you're coaching, what you're going to see, and you'll be talking about cognitive dissonance and cognitive distancing sometime in the next 2 days as part of the ways we do neural integration blocks, NIBing. And so how we block, you know, the messages of alignment. And people have patterns of this, right? They do this with unconscious competence. So I remember watching this ABC documentary many, many years ago. And it was probably like 40 years ago. And this guy had gone to Bali to film a traditional Balinese wedding. And what they had to do, if you're from Bali, when you're getting married, you have to sit down, and a shaman comes and files your teeth flat with no anaesthetic, just a metal rasp. Right? You sit there, and all your friends are gathered around. So this is what happens for a buxton. This is what happens to, you know, for the hen's night. You didn't know, go out, get pissed, and get a stripper, or go out and, you know, whatever girls do. I don't know, because I've never been to one. But
it's henna and filing. I know, because I didn't go through it. It was symbolic, but I did do that as
right.
I had an Aboriginal wedding
Oh,
in
okay.
Malaysia. So
Yeah, that whole region has this, because it comes back
influenced
by
Hinduism
the Bali Hindu, which is a shamanistic form of Hinduism in Bali. So what they believe, if you look, all of their gods have flat teeth, and all of their evil, you know, the demons, evil spirits, have big, sharp, canine incisors, pointy teeth, because they notice that animals have pointy teeth. Except, of course, obviously in Bali they didn't have a lot of ungulates that eat grass because they don't have pointy teeth. But they noticed all the animals had big sharp teeth. But humans try to transcend. The gods give us the gift of morality. So in order to give the gift to your beloved that you're about to be married and to his or her family, you get your teeth filed flat so that you are more godlike. You get rid of these 4 vices that are representative of the evil spirits. Right? So anyway, I'm watching this, and the guy's sitting there, and he's surrounded by his mates, and the shaman comes in, and he goes, and it's like your fingernails down a blackboard. He's going, "Oh, I know. Oh," you can imagine the pain, because if you've got really big pointy ones, they've got to file a lot of teeth to get it completely flat, right? Now, nowadays, they do the symbolism. They just want a quick couple of little, but I remember going to Bali 35 years ago, and the older people's teeth are all rotten out. Yeah. They're all rotten out because they've had the things filed all the enamel completely filed down. So, down to the dentine. So, I was watching that going, oh my God, you're wondering why I'm telling you this story, right? And I'm going, oh my God, if I was Balinese and I was going to marry, my beloved, and I went there and somebody said, no, Grant, don't get your teeth filed flat. What we're going to do is we're going to go get some alcohol. We're going to get blind drunk. We're going to shave my eyebrow. We're going to get that. Like my cousin got tied up in Reservoir and outside the picture theatre, naked, covered in shoe polish. Right? As all the picture theatre opened at 11:30 at night. Right? That was, see now if I said, well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get a stripper and some girl's going to take her clothes off and you'd be looking at me going, no. You're bad, mad or crazy. There's no way I'm not going to honour my family and my beloved's family and my beloved by turning up tomorrow without my teeth filed flat. Oh, the gods. I mean, you would actually feel it right in the gut. You'd feel it in the heart around the values and you'd feel it at a gut level. It would feel wrong if you didn't go and get teeth filed. But I'm a little Aussie boy, grown up in Melbourne, right? And you say to me, you're getting married tomorrow, Grant. Come on, buddy. I got the file out of the garage. Come on, we're going to get the mates around. You're going to sit down in a chair, open your mouth. I'm going to file your teeth flat. I would look at you and go, you are bad, mad or crazy. There's no way. I would feel impacted at a gut level, wouldn't you? At a gut level if somebody said, come on, file your teeth. You're getting married tomorrow or next week. So I went, wow, isn't this a graphic example of the extremeness of these memes and how they replicate down through society and how you don't even notice that this is the right way to be. And it grows the neurons, the neuronal connections, at the head, heart, gut, or nervous system, reproductive system level, so that you become the ideas, the memes that are running in the neural patterns that are running in your system. So you have to break those patterns. You have to have awareness, then you have to pattern interrupt them, so that you can grow new neuronal patterns.
Two things, Grant. One, they didn't let us know that it was going to be symbolic.
Oh, you thought you were going to actually get the full teeth filing.
Well, I, being a culture vulture and a
well, I feel it in my gut just saying that.
I'm reliving it as there were 3 television stations there because we were in the newspapers because I was marrying an Australian, but we were doing the legal marriage here in Geelong. But I lived in Malaysia for 27 years, and I was doing a Tibetan blessing and a Muslim, blessing. And I thought, why not? Somebody said, Gloria, these people don't even know. And the second thing I want to say is, they don't know the reasons. The things you've just explained, the young generation do not know the reason why teeth are filed.
They're just cutting the roast.
They know that they think it looks more beautiful. That's all they know.
Yeah.
And
that's all they have to go to the dentist the first time.
And also, young people are not doing these traditions anymore.
Yeah.
And he knew I would be open to it.
Yeah,
He
that's
said,
what's happening in
Gloria,
Bali.
would you be willing to do this ceremony?
Wow.
And I said, what's involved? And they didn't tell me everything. We had the eyebrows shaved, the henna, and just try and do that the night before and then as they're lying us down, they've got the little coconut bowls for the filings, and they're all looking at each other, grinning, and the drums.
Yeah, they're grinning because it's not them, it's you.
And the television cameras are all there, and the drums are. So I can feel it as you're describing it, and then this burst of laughter. Everybody just thought, look at these 2 whiteys, here thinking we're going to do this, and what a big joke on them. So that gives you some idea of what I'm willing to do in order to, because they had lost these traditions.
That's right.
And they had actually done research at the museum and through their grandparents of how traditionally did people actually do these traditions. And I was just trying to have something be kept alive, even if it meant, and they said, oh, it won't be so much, just a little tap. And then they burst into laughter because they had no intention
of falling into.
But they did do the brows and they did do the henna and the feet.
Wow! So you know that exactly what.
Thank you for letting me relive that gut wrenching.
And you've shared that with all of us.
But
of course, most of you haven't actually seen it. So if you actually watch some of the trainings, I actually show that video, not the MB trainings, but some other trainings. I show that video, and I show another one because. It was about, I guess, 15 years ago. A friend was going to go across to, they'd been invited to a traditional, and not many of them are done anymore, traditional wedding. And so I said, great, can you video it for me? I'd like to get a live footage of this. Because I'd hunted in the ABC archives and everything to try and get that original thing, and eventually through a cameraman that I know at ABC, I've managed to find it, the original one. But I really wanted to show, a live one. And so he comes back from the trip over there and he says, "Oh, I got the video, but I don't think he'll be very happy." I went, "Why not?" He goes, "Oh, well, you have to watch it." So he's got the camera and he's videoing the whole thing and it's all going really well, nice clear video, fantastic. And then the shaman comes and starts to do the first file. And he does the first file like that. And then the camera just goes, and you can just see glimpses of this guy hitting his teeth. Like, what happened? He goes, "I couldn't watch it. It was so disgusting. I couldn't watch it. That's all I did." What the hell, man?
That was a video response to gut-wrenching response.
It was gut-wrenching to him. He couldn't watch, even though it was coming, even though it was good. Yeah, he couldn't watch it. It's that graphic.
I can relate.
Yeah. Wow. So this is what you're going to have clients come to you who are carrying intergenerational stuff, right? That's been installed in all sorts of ways. Some of which some which may be esoteric type stuff that we can't even explain with current levels of science, and some which we are starting to explain through like phosphorylation of the DNA, so we get epigenetic effects that skip generations, and there's the informational mimetic stuff, etc. So in a sense, everyone comes to this. You cannot not come with this. So.
And the reason you can't is because it's about identity. And we take on the identity of our parents, our grandparents, what they've been through, we carry it until we do something about it.
My wife has never told me I'm like my father.
Yeah, point well taken. Point well taken. Exactly.
Or if you
You sound just like your mother. Well done. Team effort. So people are coming with this, and what it means is they're coming with certain propensities. If you say, what is identity? When you say somebody is something, you are this, I am, a writer. What is identity? It's a description of a propensity to action in the future based on the experience of the past. You've watched yourself or the other person do a pattern, and then you go, I am this because that means the likelihood I'll do this in the future is high. But its identity is, as in a propensity to act, is a propensity for neural networks to fire. And not just neural networks, endocrine and all sorts of neurohormones and somatic responses, etc. So, given that we know that neuroplasticity occurs, the whole of the mind-body system is incredibly changeable, malleable. It's just that the challenge is with neuroplasticity, as I heard one of the fathers of the field of neuroplasticity, Professor Michael Merzenich, say, that neuroplasticity also means that things stay the same, because it's adaptive. So in the face of a changing environment, it can adapt to keep its own patterns constant. Does that make sense? My behavioural example of this was I was doing a lot of work for one of the large 4 banks over many, many years, consulting to them for about 20 years. And there was this guy that when I first went, he was there and he walked a certain way and he dressed a certain way and he did his hair a certain way. 20 years later, he was still walking a certain way, dressing a certain way, same hair. In 20 years, society's changed a lot, and business practices have changed a lot, and attitudes have changed a lot. But he was still, in a world of massive change, he was changing to stay the same. I was thinking, I don't even know how you go and buy new versions of the clothes, because those fashions, like the amount of work you have to go to get those old fashions again, because he's still got new clothes. He wasn't still wearing the same clothes from 20 years ago. You can't wear a business suit 20 years and not have it wear out. But he managed to get the same business suit, 20 years in a row. That's a lot of...
Maybe you bought 20 of them.
Maybe, that's a lot of...
And that's a lot of effort to keep that order.
Yeah, so I thought, he's a change master. And he has change mastery, because he can change to stay the same in a world of massive change.
Yeah.
So,
amazing effort.
Yeah.
Efforting.
Exactly. So, skillful process. Content maybe not so good because he got marginalised in the organisation because he was seen as somebody who wasn't open to change and adapt. Right? So he got more and more unhappy over time as he got less and less value over time. And not once did he go, oh, wait a minute, I can change amazingly. It's just that instead of driving it to stay the same. And this is neuroplasticity. You know, you can use that neuroplasticity and change within 2 to 3 months. Amazing things. So just yesterday, I had an example of an experience of this. My next door neighbour, I've got a house in Melbourne, and strangely enough, I bought the family home. Embarrassing. So I've never left home. You could say, oh, I don't live in Melbourne. So I was cutting the grass and you know, getting the house all looking ship-shape, and my next door neighbour came in. He's, you know, walker thing, because he had a stroke a couple of years ago. And when he had the stroke, he was paralysed. He was first off in a bed, then in a wheelchair. They told him he'd never walk again. His whole left side couldn't move it, so at all. And now he's walking, and by the way, he trimmed off all of the trees on our boundary, threw them into my place, which I find highly entertaining. Picking this up, going, only people, as long as it's over his boundary. So he comes in, and we start talking about the neighbour on the other side, who'd had a stroke 20 years ago. But 20 years ago, they didn't know what they know now about neuroplasticity. So she actually had a stroke on my bed, unfortunately. She came in to have a coffee and went, I'm not feeling well. Can I lie down? And next thing she's going, oh, I can't feel anything down my left side. So 000, got the ambulance. So to this day, she's still alive, but she's still completely paralysed down one side because she never had any rehab for change. And she got so locked in her ways that even when they know that you could give people rehab even 20 years later, she doesn't want to change. She's gotten into the identity of being, you know, one side of her isn't there, she doesn't use it, who knows what secondary gains there are in the, you know, the situation of her family. I can imagine some of the processes that go on there. So she's changing to stay the same. Now we know that if you can have a stroke, and if you give people the proper rehab and get them reusing, then the neural networks are incredibly plastic, incredibly adaptive, and you can get back behaviours that previously they would have told you you'd never get. So can we change intergenerational memories? Absolutely, we can change pretty much everything and anything. And it starts at a gut level. But in order to start at a gut level, where else have you got to start? Because you've got to get a motivation. You've got to have a reason. You've got to have a big enough why. Right? It starts with desire. Yeah. The heart leads. Because the gut won't take action unless the emperor says, the heart's the emperor and the gut's the general. So if the heart has a big enough why, you can move mountains. Your gut will take action. You can push through fear. You know, back front of the gut, come through with courage from the back of the gut. I have a modelling with some people who were Navy SEALs and SAS people who've been in incredibly fearful and dangerous situations. Moved into houses, you know, that were known terrorists in there to save people. And this one guy said, you don't not have fear. You know that you're going to go in and A, you have to kill someone, and B, you could die. And the people going to save could die. And not one of those things is an optimal solution. So you're put in a bad place to do a bad thing that you know you have to do, because that's what you signed up for. And he said, you feel the fear, but you push through it. You push through the fear. Isn't that interesting neurolinguistics? You push through the fear. And when you start modelling this, and when I was looking at this, going, the people I talked to said that it's that expression about you've got to get some backbone to push through the fear. It's like this signal, this message comes down, something comes from up here, and it goes down your spine, and goes into the back, and then it pushes through from the back through the front. Yeah? And he said usually you have to use sound, make a guttural scream as you go in that door into that live fire situation. It's the only way you can push through fear. And so I started looking at, well, embryologically, what's going on with the development of the enteric nervous system? Is there anything that might back up why there's fear is in the front, and there's this feeling of courage comes into the back of the gut and pushes through the fear? So the fear is there, but you just push through it anyway to get the motility. And it turns out that in the embryo, the enteric nervous system develops two major lobes, two separate, so at that outpoaching that occurs where the enteric nervous system begins to form. It forms two separate sections, a bit like the left and right hemispheres of the head brain. It forms a foregut and a hindgut brain. There's a foregut brain and a hindgut brain. There's a separate enteric lobe that's grown separately. They're connected, but from a developmental perspective, one grows into the foregut and one grows into the hindgut. So I think it's kind of interesting to me. It makes sense that that's what's happening in terms of. Similarly, I've been looking at the more advanced stuff around the heart and the neural networks of the heart, because there are multiple plexi in the heart brain. So there's little mini lobes. And spiritual traditions, esoteric traditions talk about there being a causal heart, an energetic heart, and a physical heart. And they're separated on a horizontal line. The causal heart's just slightly to the right of the midline. The energetic heart, so the sharper point is at the midline. And then there's the physical heart, which is slightly to the left. And I've started doing behavioural modelling, and so I'll be doing some of the PD data that I'll be doing for New Zealand, looking at when you do different heart-based, prime functional heart-based emotings, and you can start playing with this yourself over the coming days. Notice the difference, say, between anger in the heart and compassion and peaceful acceptance. They're all in the heart, but they're not in the same location. They're different, what we call in NLP submodalities. And you can start doing some interesting things where you take something that you have residual anger on and you physically move that feeling in your heart to a place of peaceful acceptance. And when you move that through these different parts, you're literally just sending different informational signals through the lobes. You're almost ringing up grandma and going, do I really need to cut the roast in half? No, darling, that's just the way you've always done it. No, it's better if you don't always get angry in the heart. Maybe peaceful acceptance of something you can't change is better. So, all it takes sometimes is for you to, you've always done this way, always done this way, this way, and suddenly someone shows you a new way. And from that point on, you'll pick the new way because it's better. But if you haven't had that new way, you haven't had that new experience, if you haven't rung up grandma, then, we are what we do. If you keep doing the same thing, you keep being the same person, you keep reinforcing the neuroplasticity mechanisms. So, have I managed to explain any more of that on that list? Or is it time? Because I'm thinking it's time.
Grant, I'm April. Hi.
Hey, April.
Just wanted to briefly cover just that moment you said peaceful acceptance. If you have peaceful acceptance, that doesn't mean to say that you stay there.
No, that's right.
It's
like the Buddhist
from that.
Exactly, the Buddhist sense of calm abiding.
Yes.
So the calm, it's like the beating of the heart.
Yeah.
Calm your heart. Abiding means stay still, like a sense of stationing. That is not turmoil. That's a gut base. So it's really interesting because if you look at the structure, their process of calm abiding is to calm the monkey brain through bringing the heart into a level of calmness, and then the gut into a sense of deep peace. But that doesn't mean you don't take action to alleviate the suffering, because calm abiding is the first precursor to compassion.
Yeah.
Which is, our reading last night was about how compassion is kindness with action.
Yes.
So beautiful,
Exactly.
dovetail
Exactly.
right there.
Exactly. But if you don't have peace in the heart, if you're doing anger, if you're doing sympathetic dominance, you're not. It switches and down-regulates the neural networks, the superhighway of information that's going between your brains, puts you into everything from foveal versus extrafoveal vision. It shifts the processing in the left and right hemispheres and in various substructures of the head brain. It up and down regulates what's going on in the central structures of the head brain and the cerebellum. It influences the reticular formation, which influences the autonomic nervous system, which influences the heart, which influences the gut. All the way down to reproductive brain, down to a sense of core, who you are, as a soul in your life. So the most adaptive place you can be is to come from the highest expression of self. And the highest expression of self requires you come from that calm abiding, you come from autonomic balance, you come from coherence. Because when you're in coherence, when you're neither too sympathetic nor too parasympathetic, when you've got a beautiful sweet balance between them all, it allows the most adaptive response for all of this information system to be able to process things more wisely. And, all the decision-making research shows when people are depressed or stressed, they do not make effective and wise decisions.
And Grant, some of the studies are showing that for every 5 minutes, as you've just given this amazing, physics and physiological explanation of what happens in that imbalance or that angry time. But for every 5 minutes of anger, upset, stress that you've just described, it takes 5 hours, and that's with you consciously doing something.
That's right.
For anyone that doesn't, it of course goes into years, and we're talking about terminal diseases, and our entire lives are affected.
Yeah.
5 hours to recover from just 5 minutes of upset.
Yeah.
In the